Well, with that, we will go ahead and call the January 18th, 2023 Local Agency Formation Commission meeting to order. And we will go ahead and start with flag salute. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we start with a roll call, please?
Commissioner Alpine.
Here.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Here.
Commissioner Mendonça.
Here.
Commissioner Rohan.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Holmes. Alternate Commissioner Carl. Alternate Commissioner Nisley. Alternate Commissioner Starsky. All right, you have a quorum. Oh, I'm sorry. Chair Burris.
I am present as well. Thank you. All right, do we have any changes to the agenda order today?
None from staff, Chair.
All right, well, perfect. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda order?
Second.
All right, we'll take a roll call on that since we do have a member online.
All right. Commissioner Alpine.
Yes.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça.
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
And Chair Burris.
Yes.
Right.
All right, well, with that, we'll move to public comment. So opportunity for public to speak to the commission on any subject matter that is not within the agenda today. So you'll have 3 minutes to speak on the item, and we do ask that you fill out a speaking card if you plan to speak. Do we have any public comment in the audience today? All right, please come on up.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
You know,
All right.
we should have a hand.
We do right here. We do have a microphone that's handheld.
Okay, sorry.
Let me know if that one's working. Okay.
Thank you very much. Byron Chapman, Lincoln resident. The item I wanted to share with the commission, first time here at the facilities, it's a wonderful place. However, and if I could get someone's name to talk to afterwards, not tonight, but at some point in time, the disability issues that I ran into coming here is, first of all, you have 4 disability parking spaces and you're required to have 5. It's based on the fact that every 25 regular parking spaces, you need 1 disability parking space. You have 120 spaces, and that would equate out to 5 locations. 1 has to be marked as event accessible parking space. 2, the parking spaces, no person disabled in a wheelchair or otherwise is required to go past another vehicle, whether that's a disability vehicle or not. And the reason for that is me and children, for example, we never get any higher than this. So we're much harder to see. So where the parking spaces are put up, there actually should be a curb, a wheel stop in front of those so that whoever parks there can go in front of those vehicles, because then it's easier to see if there's someone there or not. And even if they do, it's harder to get to that person with a wheel stop. And that all should line out to 1 crosswalk area, step access aisle, excuse me, from those to the building. Let's see here. There were just a couple of minor issues in the restroom. And again, the last item is you do not have a podium for a person in a wheelchair. And obviously we had to get a microphone. I don't mean to come on the strong, but the ADA was put into place in 1990, and we're in the year 23. So as a public facility, I do plan on coming to a lot of these meetings. Again, if someone can give me a name or address or email or whatever, I'd be happy to speak to whoever, make it a bit easier for everyone. I'm no expert with this at all. However, I have been living this life for a couple of decades, and I've been around the horn once or twice. So with that, that's all of my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amy?
With that, after the meeting, could staff please follow up and try to get a contact? Do we have any additional public comments in the audience for items not on today's agenda? All right, seeing none. Do we have any online?
None online.
Perfect. We will go ahead and close public comment and we will go ahead and move to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are to be moved on in one blanket motion. An item can be pulled by either the public or the board. Would anybody like to pull an item from the consent calendar? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Alpine,
Yes.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
and Chair Burris.
Yes. Okay, we'll move to item 6, public hearings, and we're going to go ahead and start with item A. That's the LAFCO project 2021-03. This is the Focused Municipal Service Review Study for the City of Lincoln. I'm going to turn this over to staff for a presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Commissioners. I'm going to briefly go over, hopefully briefly, what's occurred in the last 14 months or so. I feel like we need to kind of step back a little bit to get to this point where we're at now and what the next steps will be. But I feel like we need a quick history review. So starting with the September meeting, this was in your staff report from your then new EO. This was my very first meeting. And you'll notice that, right off the bat, your staff was meeting with the City of Lincoln and staff. And the third bullet there starts with a discussion about how staff took a tour of Village 5 and SUD-B, and that the municipal service review was discussed with city staff, that this would be needed because their existing municipal service review was out of date. And that I would be coming to your board to request a study. Fast forward a little bit of time, but in October, and actually, let me back up. The other thing that you'll notice there is that I was attending the Planning Commission meeting, so I was well aware of what was happening in the City of Lincoln. This was before I started, so I was there on my own time, but nonetheless, I was there. Fast forward a couple of months, the City Council, I reported to your commission that I was at the City Council meeting, that I again met with staff and again talked about the Focused Municipal Service reviews and the upcoming applications. Again, this was my recommendation where I said, we need to look at fire, police, sewer, water services. Because as I mentioned, I was at City Planning Commission, City Council, and this is what I heard in the audience. This was their concerns. These were their concerns. They did talk about traffic, but that's not necessarily in our direct wheelhouse. It is something that we look at, but that's not our expertise. We're really into municipal services and we try to stay in that lane. So the staff recommendation at that time was for the commission to go ahead and enter into a contract with Swale that we would pay for and then would invoice to the staff, the city at a later date. So same information again. This was in the staff report. The MSR will focus on the city's ability to provide services to their proposed annexation areas. Yes, we do look at other services and we will update those services, but really the focus will be the backbone services because this is a concern from the residents. And we wanted to make sure that it was consistent with our policies and state law. I mean, consistently was in my staff report. If you look at the attachment to my staff report and we look at the scope, the other information that we were clearly identifying very early on was that we need to look at the financial ability of the city to provide services. That's standard in every LAFCO proposal. How do you serve services? How do you pay for it? We do that for city services. We do that for special district services. We don't discriminate. So again, the scope of work was laid out. It was provided to the commission. It was discussed in public comment. And it was voted on and it was agreed to by the city staff. You'll see over and over that during this period, I'm in the city of Lincoln talking to their staff. Now, is the staff that was there still here with us? Well, maybe not in Lincoln, but again, your staff was there working with the city closely and city staff on coming up with an RFI and articulating what information your commission will need to make its decision. So attachment 2 of that same staff report was a schedule, which again was discussed. The city had requested that we move up the schedule. They felt like it was taking too long. And again, the commission said, well, this is the schedule, and if we can do it sooner, great. And this is the schedule that the commission approved. And you'll notice that the final municipal service review was due to your body in the summer of 2022. Again, the scope of services, which was provided, which we worked through with city staff, and they were able to include things, delete things, and make changes to the RFI. You'll see a sample here in front of you. The full packet is there on the dais. It's also out in the public. But this was reviewed with city staff by the commission, and we moved forward. December of 2021, things start going a little bit sideways, and we start noticing that we are missing deadlines. And your staff reported that this was the situation. Fast forward to February. Again, we're missing deadlines. This was the presentation on LAFCO that was highlighted. We're concerned. Lincoln asked for to continue working on the RFI, and we said, okay, we understand you're short-staffed. And then, several meetings go on, and the same story plays out. So now here we are today. The public comment period just ended Friday the 13th. It was originally supposed to end April 17, 2022. And so where we are at is in the contract, which you'll see a part here, is that this consultant has 30 days to prepare a comment log. Let me back up. They have to respond to the comments, prepare a comment log, and then prepare the final document for your commission. And that is due to us now, February 12th, which is 30 days. And the next steps after that is then the commission receives the final study, and you can adopt the final study with the determinations or make other determinations as you see fit. And that concludes staff's presentation. My recommendation is the same as in the staff report, and that is to continue this item.
All right, thank you, Michelle. So for the sake of the conversation here, can you tell me which items we're still missing?
Well, the city did respond to our request for additional information, and they did provide them within the public comment period, which just ended Friday. And so up until Friday, we were receiving information. But we did receive, for example, the water treatment information after the holidays. We received information on sewer. And, you know, I'm not quite sure about police and fire, but I know that they did submit information the last week or so within the public comment period.
Okay. Do I have any comments from commissioners before I open up public comment? All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started with public comment. Again, it's 3 minutes per speaker. If you could fill out a speaker card to help our staff, that would be fantastic. And so who'd like to go first? I'm sure we've got some folks who'd like to speak. Well, I do have one speaker card. Um,
While we're waiting, quick question.
Yeah.
So then what's the city's position on this information? Are they going to be able to provide it?
They have, like I said, they provided information within the comment period. There's not time, as you see there in the contract, the consultant has 30 days to prepare the comment log. And what the comment log looks like is it'll show all the comments that we received, whether it's from other agencies, the public, et cetera, and then how they were addressed in the final MSR. And if they weren't addressed, why? Because sometimes we'll receive comments that's not relevant to our study, but we still note that we received those comments. So the commission will receive that. February 12th is the deadline, according to our contract.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you. Well, at this point, we can go ahead and start the public comments. Michael Garabedian, if you'd like to come on up. And anyone else with comment cards, you're welcome to approach the dais and share those. This is sort of a new thing we're trying out.
Thank you, Mike Garabedian, Placer County Tomorrow and Pacific to American Divide. I haven't been quite up with your process, so I've come a little late. And I have three main things to suggest. I suggested that in the future you have workshops, maybe as many as 10, based on the different chapters for the public. Put something in the Lincoln newspaper about it, so that there could be discussion of each of those chapters subjects. I think the most important thing to talk about is the page in it about the Placer County Conservation Plan. That page is written in a manner that, and let's see, what is that page? I think 4-11. It is written in a manner that I disagree with very strongly. It's sort of a puff piece for what the plan is. It doesn't really describe what it is. It certainly doesn't describe what your role might be in it. And I'm quite concerned about that. I mean, everybody now goes to Greg McKenzie and he tells everybody about it. You can't go to the desk, et cetera. You have to, if you go there to ask questions about PCCP, you have to get a phone number and so forth. So the way it's written and the way it's in this MSR really, in my opinion, sort of removes you from the process, as if whatever PCCP says is going to be your bailiwick to have to do. And I don't think that all of you feel that way, or any of you necessarily feel that way, but I think the answer to that is for your counsel, your legal counsel, to give you an opinion about what your role is regarding the PCCP. I mean, as you know, you are not a county agency, you are a state commission. You are not, even though you are not here as part of Placer County, you are independent from it. And the same way you are independent from the PCCP, which doesn't answers, but anyway, enough about that. So the other thing I want to say is I want to compliment, I agree with some of the work in the MSR about governance and accountability. There are 3 points in there that I think are very well taken where it's in not needing improvement category. But I think, and I'll talk about the first 2 categories very quickly, about the city's functional website is not functional for me. I have a great deal of difficulty with it. I would say that the only way I can get the agendas reliably is to go to the outside building or outside area where they have behind glass outside the building for and then they have to ask them for copies of the agenda items if I want to look at them and read them. You can't walk in like you can here at the clerk and ask the clerk to look at what's on the Board of Supervisors agenda. For the city council, you have to go ask for your own copy to look at. So the other thing about also you found it to be good, better than average, I think, for the question of the next election of the city council. And the next election of the city council, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know that anyone actually applied to the city clerk to run for the office. And in the end, as you can see on the results of the Placer County election, there was no election results for the city of Lincoln. So I just think that fact alone suggests that it's not to call them above average, it's certainly below average. And maybe it's a great thing that the city council voted to decide who would be sitting those seats without an election. Maybe that's exactly what the voters wanted, but I just don't think it's in the highest public governance and
So Mike, you
accountability.
need 3 minutes.
Great, thank you.
ask
Those are
you
the
to
points. I
close-
wanted- Sorry.
If you have closing comments, if you just want to
Yes.
close up real quick.
Anyway, thank you for this opportunity and look forward to the possibility of workshops. I think
Thank
that
you.
would be great for the public.
I have Rob Aragon next.
Good afternoon, Rob Aragon on behalf of SUD-B. Just a couple of continuing comments. I appreciate staff's kind of overarching schedule. Let me put a little bit more refinement, maybe a little bit more detail or color to that. The SUD-B project, again, has gone through its entitlements. It's got a tentative map, it's got a development agreement, it's got a finance plan, it's got a CEQA document, it's got all of those elements that are important to kind of moving the project forward. Our biggest fear is kind of playing out as we speak, right? Our biggest fear is that this little 200 acres and 400 lots is getting tethered to much broader, bigger, expansive annexation. We just can't have it. I mean, it's not fair to the Gills. They've been at it for a decade. These are issues that you guys might need to vet. I don't know. I don't know anything about that other annexation. What I do know is about SUD-B. It's got infrastructure, it's got services, the city's vetted it over and over. It's been in the lineup, it's been in the rotation, if you will, with this commission for a long time. The predecessor staff told me on numerous occasions, get through your tax sharing agreement. The Gills brought me on. I've been trying to help maneuver that family through this process. It's been painful. That process includes hand in hand with city staff. We have a great relationship with them. They've had some staff changes. LAFCO's had some staff changes. County's had some staff changes. That leaves us shrugging our shoulders. It's time to kind of untether these projects, make a motion. Let's get this SUD-B done and focus on the low-hanging fruit. We're here to answer any questions on the municipal services review to the extent that there is any related to SUD-B. We don't think there is. I would share with you that all of the information necessary for that finding can be found in all the documents that have been provided, all the updated information, and you guys can untether these issues pretty quickly. So those are my comments. We hope you guys can proceed with this SUD-B annexation.
Thank you very much. All right, Sean Scully.
I was up to adjust these up. Well, good afternoon, good evening, LAFCO Commissioner. My name is Sean Scully. I'm the city manager with the city of Lincoln. And I just wanted, since this item is really about the continuance of the MSR, I just wanted to mention 2 things. First off, from a city perspective, we wouldn't contest any continuance of the MSR because frankly, we want it to be a solid document that incorporates the many, many changes that we've submitted recently and for that. But I will say that with respect that rebuilding a schedule that now goes back well over a year and a half with all of the changes that not only LAFCO experienced before that and certainly on my onboarding really doesn't seem to be a practical discussion. We all deal with executive changes and key staff leaving, and this is an outcomes-based business at the end of the day. And so what we've tried to do in the time since this body last met was be as direct and responsible and responsive as possible to staff. And, you know, one thing I just want to hopefully impress upon everyone, these are difficult discussions to have from a city perspective because we actually provide the service every day, and we have for over 100 years. And having to prove that up to an outside agency can sometimes get a little bit messy. And I think that's a little bit what's happened. But I have one of my colleagues here today, Mel, who's going to speak here in a moment. We've been working weekends to get this done. And it's super important to us, not only on the SUD-B component, but Village 5 as well. These are critical projects for Lincoln. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes.
Sir, we received a letter from the Placer County that said they're still have issues concerning the tax sharing agreement. And I know that's the thorniest part a lot of times of annexations. We did it in Sacramento. But do you have any update on the status of that? And is it close? And...
Yes, sir. So totally correct. In my perfect world, someday in the future, maybe we might have a master property tax sharing agreement, so we don't have to do this every time. But the county staff of Vanessa Lieberman in particular have generally been fantastic to work with, and we have made a lot of progress. We have a fiscal analysis complete. I just did a workshop with City Council last week on that. The numbers look actually a little better than we anticipated they were going to. And the letter that was sent by Placer County today, I was not privy to that prior to it being sent. And so there's a couple of small details, in my opinion, at least, that we're going to need to dive into a little more. But I don't want to speak on behalf of the county, but on behalf of Lincoln, I feel that we're, you know, on the 20-yard line, if you want a football analogy. Not yours, theirs.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Red.
Tony?
I have a question.
PCWA, Tony. Oh, go
I
ahead.
have a question for Sean too, on the same letter.
Yep.
Sean, what's going on with the fiscal impact analysis on the Williams Neck parcels?
A meeting took place this week. It might actually, Commissioner Rohan, it might be better to ask Brian Cooley, who's here with Richland, because that's a much more detailed answer, and he'd probably be the most appropriate person. Okay.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Tony Frenzy. I'm here on behalf of PCWA. And my main objective is to provide assurances to both the U.S. Commissioners and to the public that PCWA has adequate water supply for the city of Lincoln in all of its planning, and that we have feasible funding plans for treated water infrastructure. Both PCWA and Lincoln collect water connection charges to fund this infrastructure, and we have a capital plan to support the amount that we charge. This plan relies on a blend of spending cash on hand on the infrastructure and in some cases issuing debt to close the gaps. We regularly update this capital plan about every 5 years. We do that in coordination with all of the land use agencies and with the development community. In fact, we're doing it right now. The next major increment of capacity that we need to construct is a filter plant that we call Ophir Water Treatment Plant. We've already constructed the headworks of that plant. We've spent about $185 million I've been at PCWA for 20 years, and over that course of time, I've seen it all coming to fruition. So yeah, so far we've spent $185 million to bringing this plant to fruition. Construction of the filter plant has been delayed twice, once because of recession and once because of drought. And that's not to say that those two episodes got in the way of constructing the plant, but in the way of actually needing it. Recession, well, people weren't building houses, and drought, people were using less water. Lincoln and PCWA have recently estimated we need this plant online around 2030. I don't see another event delaying this anymore, although I might eat those words, who knows. Lincoln has a right within their water supply contract to partner in the funding of this facility. And we are working with them right now over the last few months and getting more aggressive about it right now, about working out a more detailed funding plan to work together. Right now, PCWA has $40.5 million of water connection charge cash on hand that we're prepared to use. The city of Lincoln has expressed that they have a similar, if not more, amount. The current estimate for the filter plant is $103 million. So when we need it, right now targeting 2030, we're prepared to use cash and if needed, issue debt, but we're trying to minimize that amount. And I'll just wrap up by saying I've put all of this into proposed revisions that I've sent to your staff and consultant on the MSR to sort of true up with how we really do planning at PCWA on financing of this kind of infrastructure. And actually, lastly, I'd just really like to compliment Michelle, your executive officer. I've been working with her over the last few months and have become extremely impressed with her level of effort on all things, and she appears to have superb judgment. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, Guy Spitzer.
Thank you very much. And thank you, board, for an opportunity to address you today. My name is Guy Spitzer. I live at 5346 Humboldt Drive in Rockland, California. I've been my wife and I have lived in Placer County since 1990. And I spent most of the last my career in land development and home building. In fact, Susan, I've bumped into many meetings and known him for years and years. I'm here on the edge of standing at the edge of on retirement right now. So I'm kind of nearing the end of my career. My wife's already retired, so she's enjoying it. She wants me to come join her with that. So back in 2015, or excuse me, 2011, I was working with the Schreiber family for the marketing of 113 acres that are included in Special Use District B. And in November of that year, the city council for the city of Lincoln passed a resolution that said that they would work with Mr. Schreiber, who is right here, and his family, to process the entitlements and the annexation of this property along with the Gill family separately of Village 5. Village 5 is huge, has a huge environmental documentation, a lot of things go along with it. And this is a special use district just for the airport overflight zone area. So the city of Lincoln said that, look, we will do everything we can to keep you away from, we're going to keep you away from Village 5. You're going to go on your own. You have special use district here, our airport and all these things. Not only that, but a third of the property has already been studied for annexation. It was in the previous general plan. The service was there. In fact, we could take that in right now if you want us to. It was easy peasy. Everything was easy. That was 2011. Here we sit today. There's been so much turnover in the city of Lincoln. So much turnover. Come and go, come and go. Nobody remembers the resolution, which I could give you guys all right here. They forget about it. And they keep throwing us into Village 5, which is huge. We're a small little special use district. We got 400 residential lots and about 65 acres of commercial use. And we're right on the city. We're ready to go. We've been there. We're ready to go. And I had Costco last year. Wanted to go on this site. They're gone now because the city promised us we would be annexed in 45 days. It never happened. I've been lied to so many times that it's starting to really be a problem because the turnover and nobody remembers and they just keep kicking us and pushing us and kicking us down the line. So My question is now, after listening to all this, is what in the world's going on? Is anybody doing their jobs? We're supposed to be annexed a long time ago, and we just keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed. So all I wanted to say today to you was that thank you for listening to us. Please do not merge us with 7 and 5. They are something else. They got totally different environmental documents. They get everything else. We've already done our environmental. I mean, half of our projects already been studied by the city for the last 25 years. We've got 2 property owners. And we have major big boxes who want to come there, but we've gotten the stiff arm from everybody because it's a lot of everybody covering each other's behinds because we can't advance. I'm a frustrated citizen that every time we turn around we should have been annexed 5 years ago. And every time we turn around, we have another delay, another delay, another delay, another delay. And I heard when I walked into this room today, I guess we're setting us up for another delay for another year. So I don't know what to say other than I hope that the board and everybody else will take a look at this and say Village 5 is Village 5. And they may have to do their own big, huge environmental document, but we're done. And we've got our documents and we've been done and we're losing big box. We're losing all kinds of things for the city of Lincoln right now because they're going other places. And so that being said, I just want to thank you and just let you know that we have a resolution that says the reason we're processing separately from Village 5 because the city wanted it that way.
Yes,
We did all our documentation, okay?
thank you.
And I hope that you'll help us get into the city real soon.
All right, Tony.
Thank you. Tony Frazier with Frazier Design Group. Thank you, Michelle and Commissioner, for listening to us. I want to make sure to mention a couple of things that we brought up last time, but in case we have a new attendees today. When we're talking about SUD-B, we need to be clear, SUD-B northeast quadrant, because it even today was mentioned many times. 5 include SUD-B, but does not include SUD-B northeast quadrant. SUD-B northeast quadrant has tax sharing agreement. So the letters that was received separate, that was for 5 and SUD-B outside of SUD-B northeast quadrant. The reason SUD-B northeast quadrant was created was working with the county and the city to create the bypass. Bypass created these properties, basically. It divided Mr. Schreiber property, so he could not farm it anymore. And then he ended up having to sell it to be able to move his operation somewhere else. And the Gill family been owner of that piece of land at that corner for a long time. I've worked with the county and the city on Nelson Lane as well, not just bypass, to widen. And this property gave up land to align that roadway. So this has been a process, been going on for years and years and years. Sorry, everybody's tired and maybe, finger pointing. We appreciate Michelle's hard work right now. And it looks like the MSR getting closer for the big study. I know it's a big area, thousands of acres. I do have projects in that, but we need to focus on this little project. And that's what we're asking gently, nicely, please separate them. This project is small. I don't know if you can see it, but I pointed out here, our sewer is right here. We don't need the MSR to study 5,000 to give us, can we connect? That's already been determined. Our roadways are determined. We already widened. They gave up the land years ago and the right of way was widened. That's why this was configured this way. We have our water line. We have connection here, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 5 water connection ready to go. We just need to build up to it, building the project. So there's no more additional studies needed. We heard PCW said there's capacity. That's not an issue. We have the infrastructure there. We have the 2 landowners that already gave up everything, the city and the county and the residents, not just in Village 5, because if it wasn't for Mr. Schreiber working, dividing his land, the bypass would not have happened. So there's a lot of history here. Let's not trample on these 2 property owners and hold us up again. This has been really years and years in the waiting.
probably about 10 years, this process has been going on. And we can sit down and study this for another 5 years on the MSR. Hopefully they're getting close, hopefully a couple more months. But really, there's nothing going to change on these two properties. So I appreciate you guys considering that, helping us with the next agenda item to move forward and get us annexed so we don't come here and beg you again. You don't want to see us again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have 2 more speaker cards, but they don't specify the item. So Mel, is this the item you wanted to speak on? Perfect.
Mel Pavlinas, Planning Manager with the City of Lincoln. Thank you for having me today. I'm a counterpart of your LAFCO staff here. So I'm like last time I was here last month, I stated that there's more work to be done, and that work resumed through the holidays, and lots of comments that were provided that I collected, gathered with my staff, with the applicants, PCWA, city clerk, city manager, all the information I gathered and put all together and transferred, submitted it to LAFCO. So I appreciate that, Michelle, and Kateri. And any more edits? Hopefully there aren't any more. I think it's a lot to go through, and I understand that there will be a continuation of this item. And because the effort to get that information analyzed, reviewed, and put together in a final document, that's a lot of work. I acknowledge that. So, but any more from this point on, I'm game. I'll be there to on the other side to reciprocate as far as getting comments as needed. Regarding the schedule, the turnover, I was one of the turnover. I arrived in 2021 last in December. So, and that's a slew of other staff that were missing at that point. And while this schedule is a scope of work schedule, the reality of things in terms of staffing, in terms of staffing, getting to know the work needed to learn, it was a lot. And having two staff members in planning, me being one of them, it was challenging. And coordination with staff, coordination with the developers, it's just enormous lift to get to the point where I was at in December 2021 to where I'm at now. Nevertheless, I'm game for the work needed to get done ×2, because I'm also trying to perfect the information for SUD-B. While the bigger project is Village 5, I understand that having the MSR perfected to the best we can, it benefits for both projects. So, but that said, I'm here to be part of the solution and get the information needed moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Brian Cooley.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brian Cooley with Richland Communities. I really wanted to address 3 items. I mean, let me start off with the schedule. Mel said it very well. The RFI that's in the schedule that your staff referred to earlier as it relates to the MSR, the request for information from the consultant in 2021. I believe that landed in the city's laps around November of 2021. That was before their city manager came on board. That was before their planning staff came on board. So they really were in a significant transition of staff. It did take a while to get all that information back to the consultant to get back on schedule. I think the schedule that relates to the MSR is kind of a moot point at this point. As reported by your staff in her presentation, February 12th is the deadline to come back with the administrative draft of the MSR. That covers the 30-day comment period that you guys set last month, December 14th. We're not objecting to that date at all. We want to make sure, as the city manager indicated, that MSR is a solid, strong document. Ourselves and Richland, our development team, has been working with the city over the holidays, as Mel indicated, weekends, nights, to provide information to fill in some of the gaps that were identified in the MSR. So we really want to make sure that's a robust document. And it's came a long way from the draft that was around in just last month. And I'm confident that by the February 12th deadline, that will be a document that you eventually can consider and approve. So I don't think that is something that's far off in the future. Ideally, it's next month and into the month of March. The other thing I just wanted to address is, much like SUD-B, Village 5 does have an approved environmental impact report. It's been approved. We have an approved specific plan. We have an approved development agreement. The only thing that we don't have that SUD-B has on us is approved tax sharing resolution with Placer County and the city of Lincoln. As Sean indicated, Sean Scully, there was a workshop last week at the city of Lincoln on the tax share agreement. The letter you got today from Placer County is really more of a checklist for the county to go through to consider a tax sharing agreement. A lot of the items on that letter are addressed or significant works in progress. So it's our hope that in the month of February, we'll have an approved tax share resolution from Placer County and the city of Lincoln. And at that point, I think this notion that Village 5 is this other large behemoth of a project that is months or weeks or years off in the future isn't accurate. I think we'll both be at the same position as SUD-B. And our request is, much like the testimony you've heard this evening, we've been at this process for over 20 years. The owners of Richland have owned the Village 5 property, their Village 5 assets since the late 90s. We went through a robust specific plan and CEQA process from 2011 to 2018. We've been engaged with LAFCO, with Michelle's predecessor, as early as 2019, 2020, 2021. We've been working since October of 2021 on the MSR and working really hard over this past summer and this fall to get to the point we're at today. So it's our hope that at your meeting in March, that the SUD-B and the Village 5 annexations and MSRs can be heard by this commission. And, as stated by some of the earlier speakers, it's been month after month after month, and we really want to see both these projects get annexed so they can start working with the city of Lincoln on development standards and development design and bringing in great retailers and great end users to the area. But it starts with the annexation. And so we'd request tonight that we could at least identify a hearing date, whether it be the March hearing, and attempt to work backwards and fill in the gaps in the schedule to actually get there. There's a lot of noticing requirements for the annexation, for a sphere of influence study, for the MSR. A lot of this stuff has to be done concurrently, well in advance of a hearing. But I think you've heard tonight, there's been a lot of work over a lot of hours outside the hours of 9 and 5 to get the document and everything else in position so you guys can consider it and do a thorough review of it. And, it's on our work assignment more recently is to get this tax share agreement approved at the city and the county level. And so we're working on that. And then the third point is you had mentioned some stuff about the Williamson Act, Commissioner Rohan, and the fiscal analysis. I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to of the fiscal analysis for the Williamson Act parcels. There are about a dozen parcels in Village 5 that are either under contract in the Williamson Act or the other half are in non-renewal. The clock has started to run out. The city of Lincoln in their planning documents for Village 5 has already stipulated the receipt of those active Williamson Act contract parcels in Village 5, and then the remainder are non-renewal. So that part we need to zero down with county staff and find exactly what they mean by that. But the other three items, the map for the annexation is on the verge of being approved by the county surveyor. There was a detailed fiscal analysis done by Goodwin and Associates this past fall on the tax sharing, and that's background information for both jurisdictions to do a tax share agreement. And the issue of providing proof of the city accepting the Williamson Act is an ongoing discussion between LAFCO and the city of Lincoln. So that, I don't know why that letter came to LAFCO, but that is more of a tax share agreement checklist, if you will, which is being worked out. So my time's really about up, but again, I think all of us want to see this process come to conclusion and get back to planning this area for the appropriate development that the community deserves. So
Suzanne, did you have additional questions? Okay.
I had a question.
Yep.
For the gentleman. Brian, do you have the status? So I've read the Third District Court of Appeal opinion in all of that matter and remanded back to the court. And then I wasn't able to follow what happened on remand as the trial court made any determinations. Have you guys dealt with that issue? It's still, last I saw, it's still pending, but
Yeah.
it's in the Superior Court's purview.
I'll say this, it is an ongoing legal matter that's still ongoing. The action that occurred last summer of 2021 was action by the lower court, which required some modifications to the environmental impact report for Village 5. That occurred to the city of Lincoln. It did go to an appellate court where there was discussion of reaffirming that process. So I'm not privy to that portion of the project. That is in the legal realm with our attorneys and the city attorney and the other parties' attorneys. But that is an ongoing legal matter. And from my vantage point, I see those issues as mutually exclusive from the annexation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair Burris.
Yes,
This is Michael Walker, your legal counsel over your right shoulder. May I speak for a moment?
yes, please.
I just want to point out that for purposes of the Brown Act, Village 5 is not on the agenda today. So while some of the questions certainly relate to the MSR, we need to be careful that we don't go too much into the Village 5 project at this point because it is not on the agenda.
Yes, thank you. Certainly a little muddy and messy to separate out the MSR from the Village 5 questions. Yeah, I'll take your comment card. And if you'd like to speak on this item, you can go ahead and actually go for it right now.
Thank you, Albert Schreiber. With just for clarity, I have no monetary incentive with SUD-B any longer. It's we used to own part of the property, but we no longer have any ties to that. That being said, I'm here today because I would like to strongly encourage this commission to separate out the SUD-B project and the Village 7 project from Village 5. Village 5 is a train wreck. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Cooley's assertion that the EIR is valid. If you got my attorney's paperwork, he explains it better than I can. It is not a valid EIR currently. And so if I was sitting in your seats, I would be frustrated because we filed the CEQA lawsuit 5 years ago. It is in constant litigation for 5 years. Okay, for them to bring it to you while it's still under litigation, I would be pissed.
This is kind of the thing we were cautioned by council about, is
Yeah.
probably not an item we should be discussing as the Village 5 portion of the meeting.
Okay,
It's still within the privy of the MSR though. So that's
Well,
so
finish his comment,
specifically
but
referencing Village.
we
5.
just have to be careful about what discussion we as a board entertain and what questions we choose to ask.
thank you. So my point is, I think you should separate out the SUD-B project and the Village 7 project from Village 5. Okay, as far as the Village 7 goes, I am the biggest property owner in the remainder part of Village 7. I'm not asking to be annexed, but I'm not against development. I'm against bad development, which I believe Village 5 is bad development. If the city wants Village 7 in so bad, then I will agree to go along with that, and with 3 conditions. One is there's been a line created through the county. It almost mimics the Village 5, Village 7 line. I would like that one used. It's already been used for the Williamson Act. I would like the Williamson Act, everything in the remainder of Village 7 to be canceled at no expense to anyone. The county could do that now, or as soon as it's annexed, the city could do that. The third thing is I have a neighbor in Village 7 that when the original part of Village 7 was annexed over 10 years ago, got a letter from the city of Lincoln saying that they would never have to annex unless they wanted to. So I would like them left out and moved into Village 5. It doesn't create any islands. It doesn't create any problems. The city likes to draw new lines on the map all the time. So have them draw a new line. If those conditions are met, then Village 7 and SUD-B should have no opposition if you separate it out from Village 5. As far as the MSR and police go, City manager mentioned the council meeting last week. I specifically asked if Village 5 was gonna fill the gap for the lack of police and fire that the city of Lincoln not only currently has, but has had for over 10 years. Now this board, not all of you, but this board has approved Village 7, Village 1, part of Village 2. The city manager's new. So I'd like to give him props, give him a little time to get the gap in order for police and fire.
And I'll let Eve just take your time. So please go ahead and give me some closing.
Okay, so my point is separate out SUD-B, let them move forward, separate out Village 7 with my 3 conditions, annex it if the city wants it that bad. And, you know, Village 5 is going to be continuous train wreck as far as I'm concerned, because they won't address the issues. They even made it worse by creating an island that's illegal. That's also in the letter from my attorney. Thank you.
Terry? I can only, oh wait, he hasn't spoken on this item. Yeah, I can, I'll bring him up after Kateri.
Hello, my name is Kateri Harrison. I'm CEO of Swell Consulting. Just wanted to give you a quick update on where things stand from my end. Most of the comments that we received have been focused on the Chapter 10 that was presented in the previous version of the MSR. While we're working to respond to comments, we're continuing to focus on the key public facilities that Michelle outlined were in the contract that we have with LAFCO, and then also the follow-up meetings that we had with the city of Lincoln and the request for information that we sent to the city of Lincoln and the administrative draft that we shared with the city of Lincoln. So it's the same key public facilities, the fire station, police station, drinking water treatment plant, and sewage treatment plant. The city of Lincoln did supply us with a copy of their Nexus report that shows a general framework for them to collect fees to pay for these capital improvement projects. So that was very helpful. And I'm thankful to them to providing it to us. They just provided it to us a few weeks ago. But nevertheless, now we have it. The goal of a municipal service review is an informational document, and as well proceeds, we're cognizant of just providing information to the commission in a very clear, logical way. We'll present a draft set of determinations for you to consider, and the commission will have the option of refining or changing those determinations as you see fit. So I wanted to reiterate our corporate commitment to addressing all the public comments that were received in the municipal service review. An updated MSR will be delivered to the executive officer on February 12th, 2023. I also wanted to let you know that we do have a consulting team working on this. It's not only my firm, but it's also South Fork Consultants in Folsom and also Baracco and Associates in Sutter Creek. Many of you have probably met Bruce Baracco from Sutter Creek because he was the former executive officer of San Joaquin LAFCO. So we have a team of consultants, 4 people essentially working to get the municipal service review done by February 12th. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time. I don't need a slideshow anymore. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
And I think we have one more public comment. And if we could bring the mic. Yes.
Thank you very much. Believe we have it. Thank you. Once again, Byron Chapman, Lincoln resident. To all the commissioners here, I appreciate your time and effort that's gone into this long project. I'd like to bring it down a notch if I can and maybe get to the core, not necessarily away from what all the information that's been covered here tonight and at the previous comments between the city of Lincoln here, as well as some of the other agencies they've had to deal with. It's been my experience to follow this process, and in doing so, I've come up with something that maybe someone in the future, if not immediately, could answer. And there are a couple of families that live in the area that's proposed by the city of Lincoln to be annexed. In the beginning, one, they didn't even want to be annexed. They were all asked a year or so, 2 years, no, I take that back, about 10 years ago. And it hasn't been any secret that there are landowners out there that have been there for generations. The city has kind of caught up with them. They haven't moved. The city has come to them. And it's to be, looking to be annexed to 4,000 plus acres, which is huge. But this is my question to you. How is it that a person, a city, a county, or even a state can take land property from people who live there and have lived there for generations to be annexed when they don't want to be, and have to get to the point where we're saying, well, maybe annexation is going to be the easiest way in which to get there and still save our property, to be able to say what they can do with that property. And it's gotten kind of literally in a scenario where it's really, really muddy water. And to put it plain and simple, the last time I looked, the last time I checked, we are in the United States. We are supposed to be known for being the land of the free and of the brave. But yet there are several families that are out there that have had to literally take money out of their pockets in order to fight to keep the land that they have. This situation wasn't something that they brought up. It's something that they had to actually take hard, cold cash out of their pockets in order to try to hang on to what's already theirs. So I don't know what the plans are. Well, I kind of do for the city of Lincoln and where they want to go with this. But I think that has to take a back seat to what the people who have lived there still want to live there and what's to be done. If it moves in the direction, you can't hold back progress. I totally understand that. But this is one of those fatal issues that once you pass by that threshold, that ask yourself just for a couple of seconds, if it were your family and you were there, and you had a city or a county coming after you because they want to do it for the good of the whole, exactly how far do you ever have to buy land away from a city? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to bring it back to the board for discussion at this point. And I have this overarching feeling that there seems to be some confusion about the nature of what the MSR really is and what it really means. And the reality is my understanding is we're very close to having an MSR approved.
Right, we're close to, like I said, the public comment period did close. Not to say that the public can't comment, it's just that to have those comments incorporated into an address and the final MSR, it's just something that we add as a supplement. That's pretty common. We can take public comments all the way until your commission adopts the MSR. But we, as you've heard today, we did receive information after the holidays and within the comment period, just not sufficient to provide you with a document. And, it's within the consultant's contract, which we've all agreed to allow them that 30-day period.
Well, thank you. That definitely provides a little bit of clarity. And I think the main point that needs to really be made and addressed is the fact that each of these projects are going to be individually discussed and individually evaluated on their own merits.
Yes, we do
The
have.
MSR is not an endorsement of any one of these projects.
No, and in fact, even being in the sphere of influence doesn't guarantee that you'll be annexed. It's a probable right? And that's the key word, probable. It's still up to your commission. It's within your authority.
So do we have any additional comment discussion on the MSR specifically before we take action?
I do. I would like to have you confirm there isn't any way that either one of these projects can move forward without an MSR. Is that correct?
So as I've explained at the last meeting, really it's a three-step process. The commission adopts the municipal service review, you adopt the sphere of influence, or you update the sphere of influence, and you move forward with the annexation. That's the three steps. And while I sympathize with the SUD-B folks and wish we had the MSR back in June and July, those are the steps. Maybe legal counsel can weigh in, but you got to remember that a general plan is like, the sphere update for LAFCO is like a general plan for a city and the county. And so the MSR informs the sphere, which informs the annexation. So Michael can weigh in. That's his.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would concur with what Michelle said, but I'd also add that in essence, you need the information that is typically in an MSR in order to evaluate an annexation application. So when you do have a current MSR, that is what your staff looks to in order to prepare a staff report on an annexation application. So you need that same information. So one way or another, whether in the form of an MSR or separately, you would need that information. That is, the commission would need that information in order to make a determination on an annexation application.
So any additional comments I have on this, I'm going to save for the next item. Did you have something, Cindy?
Trinity, I did have another.
Go ahead.
question.
No,
Keep going. Okay, the next one is regarding the letter that we received from the county today. I'm under the impression from the testimony that there's a supposition that as it relates to the Williams Neck contract issues, that's a matter between the city and the county. I wanted to make absolutely sure that there isn't something in the MSR that requires information about those Williams Act contracts.
There's
we either have or don't have.
Your board will have to make determinations on the Williamson Act contract. Again, the state law discourages premature conversion of prime ag lands and ag lands. That is absolutely within your power, and it's explicit, and you are required to make determinations. So that information will be needed for LAFCO. There was a comment earlier that I just want to address about the county sending LAFCO the letter. Again, the county is an affected agency. LAFCO is the one that is the agency that initiated the tax sharing agreement, because that is our responsibility and what we are tasked to do by Rev and Tax Code 99. So it's absolutely appropriate and for the county to respond to LAFCO, because we are a separate agency and we are the agency that initiated that tax sharing agreement process.
Thank you.
I don't know enough about this process, so I need to ask a little, drill down just a little bit more.
I love Rev and Tax Code.
Okay. Do you need more information for the MSR on the Williams Act?
No, I do need it for the
Separate.
the annexation.
Great. All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you.
That's only if the annexation was to include Wilson Act properties.
Yes, so SUD-B.
Doesn't have a Wilson Act.
Yes,
property,
I
could be
keep saying SUD-B, but Tony is right. It's SUD-B NAQ. I need to stop and say the whole title, but SUD-B NAQ does not have Williamson Act. Village 5, Village 7 does have 10 active contracts and 5 that are in non-renewal. So we will need more analysis, because your commission will need it to make determinations, because state law requires.
And to be
it.
clear, that additional information and that additional conversation for that determination is related specifically to that annexation application, not to the MSR. that-
Right, it was just pointed out, it's,
you go.
it's actually, if you look at the contract, and because it's standard, we look at this, and the idea being that once you start developing near properties that are near Williamson Act land, then you start encouraging those to develop also. And so that's just something that we look at. It's typical for LAFCOs to look at the surrounding areas, even if the area that we're annexing is not Williamson Act. We look at the effects of the annexation to those surrounding areas.
Mhm. Cindy, you're.
No, are there follow-ups on that topic? Keep on that topic.
Not on
It's
that
kind of
topic.
separate.
Okay.
Not on that topic, but I do have a different question when you're finished.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, on the timeline, based on the comments we've heard, can you, and I'm just looking at our calendar and looking at the timeline that has been suggested and understanding the frustration many have had with turnovers that were beyond their control and issues. If, you know, if the MSR will be completed February 12th, that's a Sunday.
Yes.
Would it be typical for us to then, as LAFCO, hear a public presentation on the completed MSR
Yes.
ahead of making our final decision? Or
Yes.
would we do it all in one meeting?
It's all in one meeting, so you'll notice, oh, I don't have the PowerPoint, but that is part of the what was in the contract is the consultant will conduct a final presentation to your commission. You'll receive a staff presentation, of course, then the consultant's presentation, and then you will decide whether or not to adopt the
And so is it appropriate or timely that we could hear that all at our March 8th meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so you feel we'd be on track for that?
Yes, for the March 8th, yes.
March 8th meeting, given the dialogue we've had today and the issues we've had today?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. You clarified the first part. So then the second part would be, would we be then ruling on I know we'd be ruling on the MSR, would be ruling on the annexation for SUD-B NEQ?
So
Or is that a
just to be
separate-
clear, there's, it's a three-step process. So the first item on your agenda will be the MSR. Second item, the sphere update. Third item will be the annexation. If the commission does not approve the annexation, you can't take, you'll have to continue the second and third item. The commission could approve items 1 and 2 and continue 3, or you could take action on all 3. Does that make sense?
I think you misstated something.
I think you meant
I
that we have to approve the
believe-
MSR.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
if we don't
MSRs.
Approve the MSR.
Yes.
then we could-
Oh, I
But if we
apologize.
do, we could.
Right, I was,
Okay.
so I'm sorry. So yes, so 1, 2, 3 annexation sphere. I'm sorry, MSR. I'm gonna be quiet now.
Sphere and then annexation. So here's the question. My question then is, at that March meeting, if you approve the MSR, can you do that in 2 steps, or does it require separate meetings for the sphere
Do it
update?
all
No,
the
no,
same
it's
day.
the same meeting, just different items.
Madam Chair, I was wondering, do any of the items need a public hearing?
Yes, they do need a public hearing. The sphere is always a public hearing item, and the SUD-B, yes, there are 2 major landowners, but it also takes into the city or annex into the city slivers of 3 or 4 or 5, I can't remember now, of private properties. And we do not have, I've asked, but we do not have consent from those property owners for the annexation. So you do need a protest proceeding, which means you do need to do a noticing period, which for LAFCO is 21 days.
21 days or 45?
No, it's 21 days.
So 21 days to go through and then to have it as a public hearing noticed on like 45 days.
Right, so we'll notice if that item will be on the March 8th meeting, then we'll notice sometime in February. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Yeah, the only reason I was asking if we're going to have this lined up on March 8th meeting, that all the noticing starts taking place and making sure all those timelines are working simultaneously with the applications that
That way
would
there's
see
no
fit
further
if there
delays.
was if if we choose to pass the MSR and adopt the MSR, and that we could go right into the sphere and the other applications that are ready, whatever they be, that want to be addressed that day, would also be able to get noticed. We can move forward.
Yes, so staff will be noticing in February. I just don't know what day, but it's at least 21 days.
Okay.
Okay, and the second, I guess my second question, and maybe I'm still learning this job as well as many jobs I guess I hold right now. We've heard testimony about separating out SUD-B. And from what I'm understanding, the MSR does apply to SUD-B.
Yes, it applies to all of Lincoln as well as areas that they're proposing. Now, the Tony, and I can't remember his last name. I apologize. Frazier, yes, they did ask us to separate the chapter 10 to so that it's split between SUD-B Northeast Quadrant and Village 5 and 7, the larger project. And the consultant agreed and has been working on that effort.
Okay.
Well, perfect. If we have no further board comment or questions regarding the MSR, I feel at this point we're prepared. I think the plan is to go ahead and continue this to the March 8th meeting with the intent that the report will be available by February 12th for our review. So do I need a motion on that one, or can we go ahead and just provide direction?
No, you can just provide direction.
Okay. So with that, we can go ahead and move into item B, which is the SUD-B quadrant specific plan for SUD-B NEQ. And I feel like we have already kind of started to touch on this. I don't know if staff has additional presentation, but again, I think that as a commission, it sounds like we're all on the same page. These annexations are going to very clearly be decided upon on their own merits. And hopefully, it sounds like we all have the end goal of being able to make this approval at that next meeting, if all goes well and smoothly. We do have some public comment on this item, so if anybody else has not submitted a speaker card, if you could now, we'll go ahead and start with Michael Garabedian. Oh, well, thank you. Guy Spitzer? If you'd like to make any additional comments on this particular item at the time? No. Okay, and then Tony.
Frenzy.
Thank you. I don't want to butcher your last name. I apologize. Do you have any additional comments you'd like to make? This is SUD-B.
6B. Yeah, on our
Yeah.
agenda.
That would be great.
This will be brief. My only fear, and there's among many fears, but this is one of them. My only fear is that the MSR gets bogged down. Can't have that, because you're marrying us with this process. So I'm looking at all of you with this commitment that we're coming back in March and we're going to make a decision on the MSR. If the MSR gets bogged down, then SUD-B gets bogged down. Can't have that. I mean, it's just not fair, you guys. You guys have got to respect that. It is not good business. It's not good policy. It's not good practice. And it's not fair to the Gill family or the Perry family on them. So I'm sitting here saying, great, let's hold hands until we get to March 8th. But if something deviates in this MSR, there has to be a path forward to pull us out of that drama and take action on SUD-B. It could be a memo to you heard your attorney say, well, it doesn't have to be an MSR. It could be you got enough information commingled and compiled to make a finding on this issue. Do not commingle SUD-B with any other issues that may exist. Don't know if they do or don't, but the MSR cannot be pulling us into an ocean that we can't get out of. That's all I'm asking. It's very simple. Pull them apart. Hopefully this document that she says they're doing that, great. You can still, if you take action on that MSR, great. But if it slows down and we've got to wait for that, that's not good policy. That's not good practice.
Thank you. Do you have any additional? Oh, perfect.
I'd like to echo what Rob just said. Sadly, looks like we are moving to March as scheduled, which I hope it was not the case. But again, one item, it was discussed last meeting is that even problem down to the west, that this problem will be solved with our annexation. So if there is enough direction, maybe today to staff, to echo what Rob just said, we talked about chapter 10 being separated. So as a separate pass, at least if we can get the commitment, let's look at it. Because again, I know that we're dealing with new staff and been pleasure working with her. She has a lot on her plate dealing with a big, large area. SUD-B Northeast Quadrant was okayed by the prior staff to move forward to annexation. The delay was, the tax sharing agreement. And here we are with dealing with new staff, different opinion, but who's suffering? The people that want to move forward. We're being penalized for many reasons, but the county and LAFCO was okay with us moving forward. We had several meetings with LAFCO and they were okay with a prior MSR. I know that, again, different opinions, but we were okay before to move forward. The annexation was the critical path. Now we have it. The tax sharing agreement. We have what we need for our project. So again, want to make sure that we have a game plan for March, sadly, to come back. If there's anything to delay with MSR, that we're able to move forward on our merit, because we have everything. These big studies, we don't need them for what we need. We're already done. We just need to go start construction. Sadly, we're dealing with a new economy right now. That's even more suffering for these two landowners. We don't want to put the burden and the cost being incurred by these delays, millions of dollars. So I really appreciate if we have a game plan. So this is it. It's not a moving target anymore. Thank you.
Jenny?
I'm really new to this. Can it be that we separate the MSR with the chapter 10 split like that and approve MSR with the first part of chapter 10?
Michelle, do you want to
So
elaborate?
so I do have experience with bifurcating a sphere. So we use information that we have to adopt a sphere amendment, but then what that would mean is then the rest, the commission cannot take action on the rest of the sphere. So you're bifurcating a sphere.
Right.
That was several years ago. I think I need Michael to weigh in. Gosh, I think that was well over a decade ago that I had that experience.
Right, and that would mean that the MSR would be coming back for an additional meeting with an additional
Yes.
review of the remainder of the sphere.
So
but
then,
at least that option does exist.
at least we did it, 10, 12 years
Potentially
ago.
still
And
exists.
yeah, it was 2012, now that I think about it, in my past LAFCO. But Michael, I'm not sure.
Okay.
If you can help.
Yeah, I'm wondering why, if this one does not need the MSR to be approved, for it to be approved, why would we not do that in February? I'm confused as to if it was already set by a LAFCO to approve it, because he is right. In this economy, every minute matters.
So it's just the law.
It has to have the MSR for this project.
Right,
even though it's-
To have the sphere of influence approved, and then we
Yeah.
also need to have the
I sympathize. I don't know what the previous LAFCO staff, but that's been in the law since 2000. The MSR portion, the sphere of influence, has been in the law since the late 70s. You had the Bozone case from before I was born. So this has been in existence for many, many decades.
the other option we could consider is another special meeting.
I was going to throw up.
So-
I was thinking a special meeting on the 22nd, which gives it 10 days after it's in there. We could come over, the MSR is settled, people know where they're at. You already started with the noticing a week before that.
Mhm.
And everybody's ready to go on the 8th, certain determinations,
And then we
people are
can
already
cancel
moving.
the meeting.
But that would be 10 days for us to respond after staff. Is that, or the public to actually see it?
Is that feasible with our requirements for noticing?
Right, and then the other issue is you have a staff of 2
Yeah.
writing 3 different analysis, right? So,
So
I
my
love you guys, but
What's council's advice? I'm interested in council,
sure, Michael,
if he didn't step out of his office.
No, I'm here, just trying to find the right thing to click to show up. What you're proposing certainly is a possibility. You know, there is also the practical issue that Michelle raises of staff time to be able to develop the proper reports. It is necessary, of course, with respect to a sphere of influence, to have an MSR in place for the commission to rule on that. What I commented on earlier regarding whether you need certain information in MSR or otherwise presupposes that the property that is the subject of the annexation proposal is already within a sphere of influence. So you do have the three-step process in this case that applies here that Michelle was mentioning. So while it is possible to do it, you know, in with a special meeting followed by a regular meeting, you have more of those practical issues that your commission would have to determine.
So, okay, I do see that we have some public comment. I can go up and bring up anybody who hasn't already spoken on the item.
So we're speaking to the item of the MSR right now and whether you have a special meeting.
No, we're specifically on
the
SUD-B.
Okay, well, I would just say this. If there's discussion to have a special meeting to consider the MSR and the SUD-B annexation in February, I would just say that it doesn't sound like you can separate out the two projects for the MSR. It's all one MSR for the city of Lincoln. And I would just say that out of fairness to our project, we've also been part of this process. I also want to mention, we are paying for this MSR, the whole MSR. If there is an action as relates to SUD-B to take the MSR at a special meeting earlier than March 8th, I would ask that that is the entire MSR for SUD-B and Village 5. And the other thing I'd say is I think we're, from what I've heard from the consultant and from your staff, the document seems ready to go by the February 12th. It's contractually obligated to have them wrap it up by the February 12th deadline. So it then comes down to you as a commission on March 8th as to whether you delay it or continue it or what have you. And I think you've heard enough tonight that there's folks that want to move forward. So I don't see any staff issues for you to take an action on it on March 8th as previously planned. All I would say is, and I'm not trying to stand in their way. I think I agree with them. They've been waiting, we've been waiting. But if there's an action to approve the MSR at a special meeting after February 12th, I would just ask that it's the entire MSR.
Yeah.
I don't think we had any intention of separating the MSR specifically. But bifurcating the sphere was more of what we were talking about separating, but that sounds like an additional heavy lift on staff's part that might make a special meeting infeasible. So
That's not what I was thinking. In my mind's eye was approving the whole MSR
Right.
incomplete. But just doing that as soon as possible, in a reasonable time where the public will look at it. But also being able to send the reinsurance to the applicants, that hurdle has already been put aside. And then with everybody knows with that hurdle behind them, they're noticing for the March meetings and everything else could start happening with some little bit more regularity. But it may be a concern of only having 10 days of it out being in the public after the final staff and the short time that our staff would have to answer into that report.
I guess the final question comes down to, if you had to put a percentile on it, what's the likelihood that we could get all these documents together, done, and move forward with this on the 8th?
Of March.
I know I'm really putting you on the spot right now.
Yeah. I like to do a thorough report. It's just my nature. That's just what I've always done. You'll get like 100 pages from me and a small annexation. That's,
Yeah.
So, I'll do my best, but I can't promise. So I feel, well, I'll do my best.
And I know Rob's waiting here to say something, but Michelle, let me be clear then. So you feel confident that the MSR can come forward on March 8th? The sphere of influence can come forward on March 8th. The question is, if there's protests on the annexation or the other project, and can at this point, can it be at that point, can we act on the first two items and free up sub-B NEQ to move forward?
Yes, so that's, I'm sorry, let me say that I'm confident with March 8th. I'm not confident with moving in February, given all the.
Oh, no, no.
Yeah, we will.
Oh, okay. March 8th, we're good.
And then if there are problems with the annexation at that meeting, can we act on it with the annexations? If that had to be set aside, could it be then bifurcated at that meeting? Or sub-B
the sphere?
Yeah.
Oh,
It doesn't sound like that would be.
I'm not sure. That's a little sticky.
Quick, sorry to interrupt, just a quick question. Doesn't SUD-B Northeast Quadrant already in the sphere?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Yes, so we're not
to
worried
your
about that.
council's comment,
You don't need to deal with this.
we don't need to deal with the sphere question for
Just the
SUD-B.
MSR.
You just.
Just
need
the
to-
MSR. and
And
move
then
on.
you're good to go.
Yeah,
And
So
then
to
if
his
there's
point-
other issues, it's
Yeah.
on the other.
I
Okay.
think.
But it doesn't sound like we have an issue related to the sphere to begin with.
No, that's
Right.
not, we just
So-
need the information.
Well, the
and
only reason I brought up the sphere is because your counsel, Mr. Walker, had indicated that the MSR, needed to have the sphere conclude.
Right, so the commission is required to make determinations. I think it's 6 factors in the MSR and 7 factors in the sphere. And so, yes, you do need to make those determinations, but your sphere line, if you will, does not change. There's no proposal on the table for that. It's just a matter of the commission making those determinations for the 5, 6, 4, 2, 5 factors.
So because you guys are already in the sphere, we're not worried about that.
Yeah, it is, yes.
10-4.
Okay,
Thanks, Michelle.
you're welcome.
So really, the only thing that we are potentially up in the air about in moving this to March and whether or not this will really have the full opportunity to be approved in March is what kind of public comment we get as far as protests. Is that?
No, it's not that, because we closed the public comment, so any
Right.
comment we received after the 13th, it's an attachment. This
Okay.
is what, and there's, of course, your commission can decide, this is really pertinent information. We need more information on this comment. And so, yes, you can absolutely do that.
So the protest period does not open?
No, there's no protest for the MSR.
No, I'm specifically asking about SUD-B.
Oh, SUD-B. So what happens when the annexation gets approved for SUD-B NAQ is that 35 days after that, staff, you can delegate it to your executive officer, will hold a protest hearing. And then in this case, it's uninhabited, so it goes by land value, not land plus improvement, but land value. So in that situation, the Gill family overwhelmingly has the votes. So even if we receive protests, it would be insufficient to kill
I think
their
that's
project.
exactly what I wanted to hear.
That's.
Thank you. Perfect. Well, with that being said, unless there's any protest to us continuing this item as well to March 8th, or if there's additional conversation. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and we've taken 2, so I'm gonna take them. If you have not yet spoken on the item, you can come on up and speak, and then we're gonna close for public comment.
And I can get you a speaker card afterwards. So my name is Justine Gill. I am with Gill Property Development, one of the 2 landowners for SUD-B Northeast Quadrant. I would like to start off by thanking you guys. Our project, we've really been pushing this since 2011. That's really close to when the last MSR was updated. That's why it wasn't an issue for our project. And with your predecessor, she also indicated that we didn't need to update the MSR, which is why we haven't, which is why it wasn't a push for us. It wasn't an issue. We are virtually infill at this point. One of the parcels in SUD-B Northeast Quadrant is within city limits. We have Nelson Lane, which is maintained by city staffs or by the city. So realistically, there isn't much else that's needed. If we could potentially go to the February 8th meeting, if we can do what was that called again?
To bifurcate it.
Yes. But we did submit our application, so we weren't able to submit it until we had the tax sharing agreement, we understood. So we went ahead and got the tax sharing agreement concluded with between city and county. And at this point, we are 6 months with the application having been submitted to LAFCO. So we're not a big company. All due respect, we're not Richland. It's my father and I, so it's a lot smaller. This project's a really big deal for us, and it would really make a big difference to our family. So I really appreciate us being able to move forward and not constantly having continuation. So if there's any way that we can move forward, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I think it's this commission's attempt to not overpromise and underdeliver. And I think that that's really our goal at this point, is to not set up a meeting where we're setting you up for failure in another continuation. And did we have an additional? This is the last public comment, and then public comment is closed.
Before he speaks, I just had a question, Michelle. So if they were approved under a prior MSR, they were approved under an MSR, it's already existing in the city. Why are they subject to this modification?
So the tax sharing agreement wasn't in place until I think this summer, maybe in the spring. And at that time, when I came in, the application was already in the office and it was incomplete pending the tax sharing agreement. And, the schedule that we came up with, even though it, was due June 22nd, I think there might have been like a month or two that maybe the Gill family would have to wait, but it certainly wasn't anticipated that, everyone would abandon ship at the city of Lincoln. So here we are. But yeah, the intent was to have SUD-B, to have the MSR, to have the sphere, to have SUD-B as summertime, which was, well within reason, because the Board of Supervisors and the city had adopted the tax sharing agreement. I think it was late spring, early summer. So had the schedule that that the commission approved played out, it would have been perfect timing.
But you said there were three steps: MSR annexation, MSR sphere and annexation. They had an MSR approval under a prior one. They didn't need annexation because they're already in.
Right.
Right.
So-
They didn't have a complete application at that time. And I'm going to address the elephant in the room. It really comes down to the fact that this commission did not perform regular MSRs for the cities within Placer County on a regular basis, like we were legally required to. And so now that's why they're being subject to this.
I know, but doesn't it feel like we moved the goalposts on them every time? I mean, they had it apparently approved from this body.
No, LAFCO did not approve an annexation in 2011. The MSR, yes, it's 2010. LAFCO cannot take action until you have a tax sharing agreement, Rev and Tax Code 99 B6. So you just can't. So the tax sharing agreement was approved by both bodies, City Council, the Board of Supervisors, in the late spring, early summer. I don't remember the exact date. I'm sure it's in my notes here because I was reporting on it to your board. And so at that time, yes, we could have taken action if the MSR was on schedule.
Because if we had done an MSR in 2017, like we probably should have, they would have been fine to use that MSR and we would not be in this boat.
The problem is they were consistent and approved under an existing MSR.
Again, so this was in my staff report, and because this was discussed at the meeting. So there had been significant development and growth since 2010. You had a recession, you had COVID, I don't know, you had a number of circumstances that have changed. And so what the MSR looks at is, can the city provide services to its current boundary and to the sphere of influence where it plans to grow? And so you need that information, which the MSR provides you. You need current information, not information from 2010 when and frankly, I read that MSR, it was talking about laying off police officers and laying off fire personnel because they could not afford it. It was, you know, after the 2008 recession. And so you would have had an MSR that says, gee, their fire department is severely depleted. Gee, they're, you know, all of these backbone services. And so I'm not sure that that would have given you the information that you needed to make a decision. Well, I know it wouldn't have been sufficient to make a decision for the sphere and for the annexation because the circumstances had changed.
Even though they were already, you didn't need to do a sphere because they were already in it.
Right. Again, the information is what you need, as legal counsel indicated earlier. It's the information that informs you. Yes, they can provide services. Yes, they have the ability. Yes, they have the capacity. They have the financials. Everything is good to go.
So let's take example. When the California legislature passes a bill and it's effective January of 2023. Everyone has up until January of 2023 to operate under the existing law, correct? Even though they passed the bill in June or September. So you cannot make things retroactive. Are you saying because the process had already started of the MSR?
No,
They
I'm
were-
saying that the information in the MSR from 2010
So
that the city was laying off police and fire. It's within your responsibility to look at those critical services.
We couldn't have made the appropriate findings we're legally required to make to approve it. So if we had used that MSR, we would have basically said, thanks for your money, thanks for your time. The answer is no. And that wouldn't, I mean, that just sets them up for failure. And I apologize, we do have that last public comment. Let's go ahead and take that really quick.
Is he saying something?
What's that?
It looked like he was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Chair Burris, may I make one comment?
Yes, please.
I just want to clarify that a commission in approving an MSR is not approving or granting any sort of indication of approval of potential annexation applications. It's approving, in essence, an informational document that your commission then uses when it then receives annexation applications. So it just to address Commissioner Starsky's comment, it's not really comparable to a new law coming in place where you can continue to act under the existing law until it comes into effect, because the commission's adoption of an MSR doesn't have that effect.
Thank you. All right, public comment.
Which reiterates my point. If it doesn't have that effect, it reiterates the point. So.
Thank you, Albert Schreiber again. So I would like to agree with the previous speaker. If you remember what she said, I think the same argument for SUD-B that she made could be made for Village 7. But I want to address I guess there's multiple elephants in the room, is the last LAFCO meeting, your consultant basically said the city of Lincoln was deficient in everything. The city manager then got up and said, no, everything's great. So it's no secret they're already short on police and fire currently today and have been. So I hope you're not giving false hope to the SUD-B group that, you know, this MSR is going to pass. I don't know what your ratio is to, you know, how bad services can be and you still pass the MSR, but you know, you might want to think of that before you're promising them that they're going to go next time. Thanks.
Thank you. And I want to be clear, when the MSR is completed, it's an informational document. It's not us, again, endorsing any projects or failing any projects. It's us taking the current state of the city as well as the future plans of the city and saying, this is what we know we have to work with. And do we have the appropriate tools to then use that document to make the legal determinations required on the application at hand?
Yes.
And so using the previous MSR would have been detrimental to the application.
Absolutely.
And so having this new MSR approved on file and being able to approve the sphere of influence requirements is in favor of all of these applications for annexation.
Yes, it's absolutely to the benefit of the applicants, which is why we took action as soon as I walked into the door. and before I walked in. So that's, you know,
We appreciate the work that has gone into this immensely from our LAFCO staff, from the city staff, from everybody who has toiled over this. I know it has been an incredibly painful process, but it has been a very essential process to make sure we do this right the first time.
yes.
Do we have any additional comments from commissioners? Okay, so this item is continued until March 8th.
Yes, thank you.
And then at that time, we will have those 3 items and hopefully forward progress. We're moving to item 7, commissioner comments. Do we have any closing comments from commissioners?
I do. I have a closing comment. And it's kind of, I don't know how to say it because I rarely do kind of a thinking exercise, wasting time under comments. But what we're seeing here, what we've witnessed today is I think we're seeing we're seeing the process breaking down. And it's really a result of seeing governance kind of drop. We had this significant change in the last 3 years and how we conduct meetings and how we're doing things. And I don't think the same way that we used to meet, where people would kind of engage each other, is happening, whether it's on this a Zoom type forums, and there are things people have, we're engaging, we're probably involved in more than we ever been before, but the conversations are not taking, the healthy conversations are not taking place for a variety of reasons. Some don't like being recorded, some don't like being talked to, and I think that we're not getting the passive feedback loops like we used to have. I think this is what we saw in this process here. We saw a timeline slip. We saw changes happening. We've seen new participants in the same time, large demographic change moving in here. And yet we're challenged right now to get our basic documents of facts to work off, which is these MSRs that we have to get into line because we're behind on them statutorily. But at the same time, we need to have our processes in place. And I don't know how to go about doing it where we could, as commissioners or people, not to be biased to any say favor to any project, but to assist an applicant. If the city was not meant to the consultant or the commission was not doing this, should have been caught a lot earlier in our process, and we could have maybe engaged it a little bit earlier. I also see there's an opportunity here today. Where there's a lot of new people in leadership processes. What is the process? How does that process look, right? What's the flow chart of getting an application?
Yeah.
And what are the hindrances that are stopping an applicant from getting to successfully get it done? So I think that this is a wake call. We have some significant MSRs coming before us. I think if we could kind of dissect this and maybe kind of think of it as commissioners of how we can improve our processes and work with partners. So the cities like Lincoln, Auburn, or any city in Placer County, that those land use agencies have put an idea, a vision that they want to have people invest, that they're not waiting 11 years to get a project through. That's inefficient and it's wrong in a lot of ways. The process is made. We should have supposed to be a bunch of objective things, which would be the MSR, facts, okay, how people blend in, and we just have an arbitrary adjudication and move things forward, or not, or deny them based upon the rules and legislation that's before us. But I think that we got a lot of work to do to help assisting not only the applicants, but the cities fulfill the land use agencies fulfilling their visions within the guidelines of our authorities. And if there's any ideas, I mean, that's something we could talk as a commission, but it pains me. It just pains me. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are making investments in the community's dream that is being delayed.
No, there seems to be a transparency issue, and that's why I've specifically asked staff to provide a checklist of our required determinations for the next meeting, so that there's a very clear, in front of everybody, in front of your face, piece of paper that says exactly what we are required to be able to make determinations on. Because I hate for people to follow their heart down a rabbit hole that has created this issue.
Absolutely. And just really quickly, when Commissioner Alpine was chair, great idea with having a project status report for every single meeting, just a one page, because you'll notice a lot of the images that you saw as we were going down the month, that was all in the staff report. And so you, as the board, was receiving constant updates. So thank you for encouraging that transparency. And if you have other ideas to promote more transparency, absolutely.
Thank you. Additional comments from?
I just wanted to thank staff. I know Michelle came in and inherited, a lot of problems here. It is a small staff of 2 people. And so I know when people are frustrated, any of our jurisdictions or developers or those proposing, they're frustrated. Michelle, I hope you hear it's not at you. It's at what was broken before. And I want everyone to know how strongly we feel about your performance, your clarity. And we are so thankful you took the position. And we appreciate comments from the public that allow us to continue to improve. We know there were problems with this organization and with the prior staff. We are now moving forward in a much more proactive manner.
Yes.
And we know that those, unfortunately, there were people caught in the middle as that transition occurred. And that transition had many faces. It had county leadership change. It had major changes in the county, as well as at LAFCO, as well as at the city. So let's come together and realize, it has had an impact, but what can we do expeditiously to get through this and move on? So
Absolutely. Thank you.
thank you.
Cindy, I'd like to say I agree wholly with everything that you've talked about. And also Josh as well. I'm looking forward to the work that we're going to be doing on the ad hoc committee, looking at MSR policies. And there could be some very proactive things that we could do when we are presented with an update on a schedule that is indicating that timelines are not being met. We could ask our executive director to send a letter to the jurisdiction, say, is this project still active? What's the status here? So that the jurisdiction fully understands this schedule depends on a partnership with that jurisdiction. It can't be done all on this side. It just can't be done all on LAFCO's side.
And if we have to,
Thank you.
Go ahead, Josh.
yeah, and if we have to help people together, sometimes it just takes the assistance of getting people in the room and going, we got to resolve this. Who's short on a resource? How can we help that resource and get that report to that person?
Yeah.
Or why is the counts, someone's dragging their feet on a thing? But that kind of engagement, and hopefully we could answer that in a lot of policy, so it doesn't have to come, you don't have to wait every 30 days for a lot of commission decisions on it. Should be automatic work. A lot of this stuff could be done, I think, in our rules and regs.
Well, thank you. Any additional commissioner comments? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned.